Now more than ever, our attention is constantly being demanded by everyone and everything. Between a full-time job and all sorts of family obligations, starting that new project we want to start, and oh yeah, don't forget about eating healthy and exercising and having a social life too, we finally get to the point of overload and decide, okay, let me try this or that new app or technique to try to make it all work. But none of that stuff really ends up helping, does it? In this video, I'm going to share a solution I found to this chaos through my years of experience in sales and academic coaching that not only throws pretty much everything you've probably heard about time management out the window, but which will also take the stress and anxiety out of planning your life. I've been on both sides of the spectrum, from experiencing a life with lots of time and no money to having a lot of money working on 2 businesses at the same time and struggling under tons of stress to make all those things I mentioned work. For most of us, our approach to time management really just sucks. And the ancient Hindu story of a man named Narada illustrates exactly what I mean. Narada approached the god Vishnu to tell him he had finally achieved spiritual enlightenment, but Vishnu wasn't convinced. He gave Narada the task of carrying a bowl of oil around with him everywhere he went without spilling a single drop. Despite the massive distractions around him, he completed the task successfully. He was so super focused on not spilling a drop of oil out of that bowl. He was so obsessed with that task. So he went back to Vishnu to tell him the good news. I did it, he told Vishnu. I didn't drop a single drop of oil. To which Vishnu promptly replied, but how many times during this task did you think of me? The point Vishnu was trying to make here was that Narada was so focused on that task that he lost all of his greater sense of purpose behind the task. In essence, he lost the spiritual, bigger picture. And that's what most of us do when we try to manage our time. We're just mindlessly pursuing tasks to pursue tasks and trying to force them all to fit. And we think we're really being clever by using this or that productivity or calendar app to organize them. But just using these tools to organize tasks is kind of like, and you know, come on, we've all done this before. It's kind of like organizing our desk for an hour and then convincing ourselves we got work done. But don't get me wrong, I consider myself a highly organized person. I thrive on having structure and having all my tasks blocked out on my calendar. But this itself isn't the solution. In Stephen Covey's famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he offers a simple phrase that he claims is the key to time management: roles before goals. What he means by this is that in order to know how to manage our time effectively and get more of what we want done, we have to define our goals first. Well, duh. But I'm sure you've done that already, right? Well, then here's where the roles part of this statement becomes important. He tells us we need to identify what role the activity plays in our lives first. And then that's how we can determine our goals, which will then determine our schedule. Okay, so then let's break down what this actually looks like. Covey offers an exercise we can do to help us discover what role a particular activity plays in our lives. And it's called the urgency and importance quadrant. And it's pretty convenient because we can basically take the set of tasks we have now, identify which of the 4 quadrants they belong in, and then reprioritize them in our schedule accordingly. In the urgent and important quadrant, we have things like finishing a client project. In the important but not urgent quadrant are things like personal growth and exercise. In the urgent but not important quadrant are things that can possibly be delegated, like meal prep and cleaning. And finally, you have the not urgent and not important quadrant that contains things like watching TV and playing video games. This all sounds helpful, right? And it is. But here's where I started to get stuck with this when I first learned it, and where you might get stuck too. While this quadrant helps us identify our priorities, it still doesn't achieve 2 key things. One, it doesn't really offer us a concrete way to figure out what's important to us in the first place. And 2, while filling in this quadrant once in a while seems like a worthwhile activity, let's be real. Our priorities can and do shift as we all live our crazy lives. So in order to truly make this work, we would need to reevaluate this quadrant daily. But are you really gonna do that? I know I personally wouldn't be able to keep this up as a daily habit. So then how do we dynamically determine our priorities and actually gain control of our time? By gaining control over our thoughts and emotions. To prove this point, just reflect for a moment. How do you honestly feel when you hear people talk about time management? If we're honest with ourselves, it's probably a sense of dread, because what that sounds like to most of us is, oh, I have to figure out how to do more stuff and fit more into my calendar and shift from this task to that task and so on. Making all these productivity systems alongside the rest of our work life and social life and family life just seems overwhelming. And as YouTubers such as Ali Abdaal and also numerous psychologists have pointed out, taking the stress and anxiety out of our approach to time management is a crucial factor in being more productive. Okay, so if gaining control over our thoughts and emotions is the key to gaining control over our time, then how do we achieve that? Throughout my years in sales, as well as in my years of formal teaching and academic coaching, writing things down had always been key for me to stay organized alongside a busy schedule. But it wasn't until so much later in my life that I discovered journaling. Okay, I know you might be thinking journaling is a waste of time. That was what I used to think too. I would hear people talk about, oh, you should journal your thoughts. So journaling will help you be more mindful and centered. And I was like, no, I want real tangible things in my life that are gonna help me. I wanna take action, and journaling isn't gonna do it. And boy, was I wrong. One day I ended up picking up the book, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And in that book, he discusses journaling. So even though I was almost tempted to skip over that part of his advice and not take it seriously, I instead said to myself, why not give it a shot? And within the first few days, journaling for just about 10 minutes or less each day, I already realized I was getting way more done in my day. So I looked back in my journal to find out why. Looking back on day one of journaling, I found a clue. That entry was pretty basic, just a collection of my thoughts, how I felt that day, and what I had to get done. But then I noticed the last line of that entry read, in fact, I'm gonna schedule that into my calendar now. Interesting. The second day was an analysis of stuff I was doing to improve my YouTube game, as well as my thoughts about how I felt after going to the gym. The third day was more YouTube analysis and learning, along with phrases such as, I recently came to a realization that was extremely interesting, and I feel so much in alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing in my life. It seemed as though this simple daily habit, which took me less than 10 minutes a day on average, was something I not only enjoyed because it helped me clarify what I was thinking, but which stimulated in me new realizations of what activities I should be doing, which ones I shouldn't be doing, and made me actually come up with new, more meaningful tasks and proactively schedule them into my calendar. The more and more I reviewed what I had written in my daily journal, the more and more I discovered reflections on new habits I had created, such as, there's very little friction in this process. Empowering statements to myself, such as, I'm looking forward to hitting my goals this quarter. Observations such as, I continue to amaze myself with the productivity I've been able to accomplish recently. And more proactive statements such as, ask about this during the meeting next Friday. Don't get me wrong, I found plenty of negative statements in there too, such as, this might be uncomfortable and even stressful, but the alternative is me doing the same goddamn thing for the rest of my life, sitting here, getting older and watching Netflix. I really had to convince myself this morning that I'm ready for this and that I can do this, and I feel like I'm anxious about a bunch of stuff all at once, so I'm just gonna lay it out there. You know, you hear so much in the personal development space about being positive and not being negative, but honestly, that's BS. Expressing negativity in a healthy way helps us identify problems, and we always have problems. And then by doing that, we get so much closer to an actual solution. No negativity, no solutions. No solutions, no meaningful tasks. Just mindless robotic ones. Journaling, in a sense then, has got to be one of the sneakiest and overlooked ways to proactively and mindfully plan out each day of our lives, all while decreasing the stress of doing so. But why did this process take the stress out of time management for me and allow me to get more done in less time? Because I was clarifying both what I was thinking and what I was feeling. And only then was I able to identify dynamically, day by day, which activities belonged in which areas of that importance and urgency quadrant. You see, for too many of us, our thoughts exist as a jumbled up mess of vague feelings that never get fully expressed. expressed. So how the hell do you think we can get anything meaningful done if we're not having a daily conversation with ourselves about what's really important? I submit to you that you're already wise. You already know all the answers. You just have to be crazy enough to start talking to yourself. I dare you to make it a habit of journaling for 10 minutes or less per day and watch your time become more and more under your control. In fact, I want you to try it out and then come back and actually let me know how this empowered you to take control of your time. If you want to keep learning how to use your critical thinking to control your life, then be sure to watch this next video.